Hey everyone, it's Joelle at Brooklyn Book Doctor. It is Tuesday, April 28th, 2020, and I am talking to Lynn Fraser, who's in Nova Scotia. Lynn is someone who helps people heal from trauma. She's also a writer and a speaker and an organizer. She's healed herself from trauma. And recently, we've been working together on her book proposal for her second nonfiction book. This one is called Ordinary Trauma, Extraordinary Healing, Inspiring Stories and Powerful Practices to Heal the Pain of Being Human. Title I really love. Lynn, welcome. I'm so happy you could be here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joelle.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great to have
And
you. Yeah.
I have to say that book title came from the book proposal academy workshop that we were doing around titles. And I had a title that was kind of okay, but that title was that's a great title.
This is a great title. Yes. So for those of you listening, what we did in Book Proposal Academy is at the end, once people have been working on their proposals for a few months and they had a lot of information about what was in their book, we had something called a title pitch where everyone in the academy had a chance to pitch their title to everybody else. And then we all commented on it. And what I love about the title pitch is people get so excited about other people's ideas. And
Right.
once the comments start flowing, then it's really fun to see what everyone comes up with and also what it sparks in yourself, because you've been thinking about it a lot and living with your working title for quite a long time. But then suddenly you start to see your project from someone else's point of view, and it changes how you see it could be phrased or characterized in a new way. And
Mhm.
it's really fun. I
It
really
is.
enjoy those
Yeah.
sessions.
Yeah. And in my case, what I was really looking for was a way to explain trauma in the title so that people would realize that it meant all the kinds of ordinary human life pain that we experience and how to work with that. And the big T trauma is partly what we're working with in the book, but it's the same process of what we would use to deal with, being ignored or being, neglected emotionally as a child. So we're not dealing with just the more extreme cases of child abuse or something. We're really dealing with the experience that we all have as human beings and how hard it is. Human life is hard.
Human
And
life is hard.
it's really good to have, it's hard, and we need some ways to comfort ourselves and attune with ourselves and reassure ourselves. And that's what the book's about.
I think that's one thing I learned from your book and reading your proposal and working with you on it, that there is such a thing as little t trauma, meaning that it's still trauma. It's something that has happened to us. Something has happened to us that's affected us negatively, and we're caught in a loop, or we're caught in a rut because of it, and we can't get out. We might know that our behavior is not helping us or our responses are not helping us, but either we don't realize that there's a source to them, or we don't realize that they can be healed, or that we can change. And
Mm.
one of the things that another thing I learned from you is that it's quite simple to change if we engage in the practices that you teach us. And
Mhm.
that's not kind of a marketing plug at all, but that by doing body scanning and breathing and
Mm.
regularly showing up in these ways, we can actually reattune our nervous system to
Right.
dissolve those past traumas.
Mhm. And that's one thing right now with COVID-19 that people are really starting to hear more about the nervous system and learn more about what are our responses to the fear and the uncertainty and the powerlessness that we're experiencing right now. And Dr. Gabor Mate is a physician and trauma expert that I love this really simple definition of trauma. He said the effects of trauma are disconnecting. We disconnect from ourselves, from our sense of value, and from the present moment.
Mm.
And so the mindfulness inquiry process I do and the work with the nervous system as a yoga meditation practice, those help us to come back into connection with ourselves. And in order to do that, we need to feel safe enough to come inside. And we're talking about perfectionism and procrastination today. And that perfectionism is often driven by that inner critic and that kind of urgency that I need to be better, I need to be perfect so that people will love me and they'll take care of me. And a lot of that unhealed childhood trauma and disconnection is what we're dealing with as adults. And then we get into a situation where we're writing a book, and it's like, oh my gosh, now what? I'm going to be exposed. I'm going to be the judge, and other people are going to critique my work. And what if it's not perfect? And we can get ourselves in a real knot, and then we can't move.
Right, because it's very hard to be in flow with yourself or with ideas or in conversation with whatever imagination, if you're writing a novel or something, when you feel like you have to be perfect.
Yeah. Hmm.
Then you're just protecting yourself from an imagined future, then you're not in the present moment. And
Right.
it's not full of pleasure, and it's not interesting,
Hmm.
it doesn't feel free, it doesn't feel fun or nourishing. It feels like a contest, maybe even like a life or death situation,
Hmm. Hmm. It's
where
a real slog. Yeah.
it's a real slog and it's not fun. So of course we're going to procrastinate, or of course we're going to procrastinate, right? Like, who
Yeah.
wants to be in that? Then it's when there's a taskmaster saying you've got to sit in the chair and do the work, and then who wants to do that?
Right. Yeah. And that inner critic can get pretty mean. And a lot of people, and sometimes people will say it out loud too, they'll make a mistake and they go, oh, you're such an idiot. And more often it's our inner voice. But who would want to be present? Sometimes I'll say, if you were to sit down and talk to a friend of yours, and if you and I were sitting down and you were saying, Lynn, I'm just having all this problems with this, and this is what's going on, and I would be, I'm so sorry to hear that, and tell me more about it, and let's talk about it, and maybe I might remind you of all the wonderful things about you and your strengths and all that. But if we're to sit down and have that conversation with ourselves, we would not be as kind. And oftentimes people will, I'll say, if you were sitting down and someone, a good friend was telling you that, would you feel compassion for them? They're like, oh, yeah, of course I would. And I said, well, what about for yourself? And they're like, no. And sometimes
Yeah.
people burst out laughing, like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, why is there such an extreme double standard? Why do we hold ourselves to such an impossible standard? Not even a high standard, it's an impossible standard.
Possible, right? That links back to the safety mechanism of our best chance of survival as a child is if we're connected with reliable adults, usually our parents, and they will take care of us. And so if they are not really attuned to us, or if we get the feeling from them that really what they want is good marks and they just want us to kind of shut up, and sometimes they'll, it'll just be that kind of, don't bother me with who you really are.
Mm,
I just want you to be well behaved. Or, if
right.
we're crying or we're saying, this isn't fair, this happened to me. And they're like, well, whoever told you life would be fair? Like,
Yeah.
quit being so sensitive, right?
Right.
And so we get that message in a lot of different ways. And then we take that on ourselves too, which is really sad when we
It
look at how
is.
we drive ourselves.
It's so
Hmm.
sad to think of a child having that experience of not of lack of sympathy or the lack of empathy. And that, I mean, I
Hmm.
understand parents are under a lot of pressure, absolutely, and juggling a lot in this very demanding world. Right now, we're in about week 5 of shelter in place, so it's extremely demanding. But even when it's not a pandemic, people have a lot of pressure on them.
Yeah.
It's understandable, and yet still, when I think about a child going through that kind of um, neglect in those moments, my heart goes out to them. I think if that's a routine experience, then when you do start to do things that are really valuable to you, like writing or any kind of big creative project,
Hmm.
and you hit a road bump, you might be tempted to go right to the critic instead of going to a place of trust where you know that this bump is temporary.
Right.
Has that been your experience with clients or with your own process?
Definitely. And the thing that happens is when we have that experience pervasively as a child of not really being connected with, is that we begin to believe that we're unlovable, we're not worthy, there's something really wrong with us. And, if there's more abuse, there might be, I'm disgusting, I'm fundamentally bad. but there's just this sense of there's something not right about me, because if I was lovable enough, then my parents would love me. And so that's what we land in when we have an experience of, we're trying to write something, and this kind of aggression comes along. It's like, well, don't be so stupid, you should be able to do this, or and we'll have that going on, and that just puts us in a shame storm. And when we're in a shame storm, we can't do anything.
Right.
And that's what writer's block's all about. We just kind of freeze, and then we don't know how to get ourselves out of it.
That's right. Yeah. What I tell people and myself when there's a writer's block, or this sitting down to work and nothing is happening, there's just this feeling of I can't, is to try to change the channel. Do anything to change the channel. Go for a walk if you can. Do another activity, come back another day, that kind of thing. But I wonder if you found some things that work for you when you come across that kind of standstill, or something that works for your clients.
Right. Yeah. So all of those things that you just talked about, for sure. Like oftentimes if you get out for a walk or something, your head will clear and you'll feel better after. But really specifically in terms of this mindfulness inquiry, what we're doing with this sticky stuff from the past, is that we need to handle it or be present with it in this moment in time. And so we need to kind of update. There's part of us that doesn't tell time. And so if we have those pervasive beliefs from childhood based on our experiences, we need to somehow bring them into this moment in time so we can see through them. So one of the ways that we do that is with mindfulness, we're steady in our body. You might notice your seat in the chair, your feet on the floor. We work a lot with breathing. So, to maintain awareness of your breath. And then we witness or observe thoughts as well. So thoughts are coming and going in our mind. And oftentimes, if you don't have a mindfulness practice, you don't really know what it is. All you know is I'm stressed, I'm blocked, life sucks. But we really like to get into more specifics around my dog. That's how it's working.
Your dog has something to say about this.
She does. We'll see if she settles down. I might have to let her.
Okay, that's fine if you do.
So we need to get into specifics around, okay, so what's going on in my body right now? And what's going on in my mind, and how are those connected? And so as we're doing a mindfulness inquiry, we notice that thoughts come in as either words that we hear, like, you're never going to succeed in that, or, who do you think you are that you can write a book? Could be another thought. Mm-hmm. It could be memories that are visual, coming home and you see your mom and dad looking at your report card and they're telling you something critical, or it could, so we have visual, like still pictures or video clips. And then we can notice what happens in our body. What's the response in our body to that? So it's a very somatic based experience. So we might have a feeling of our shoulders, neck and shoulders are tight, and we have that kind of bracing across our back. It's tight. And then, so we could pay attention to that sensation. We could notice, what exactly does it feel like? It feels tight. It feels, painful in some way. It's hot and fiery, or it's cold, or whatever it might be. When we move our head, it hurts or something. Or we might have like a tight fist in our gut. That's just like this black fist, like I can't do anything. I can hardly even breathe, But then we look at the thoughts and we connect them with the energy, and we call it just releasing the Velcro on the thoughts. So there's a few ways that we can work with thoughts. So one is to take a step back and notice that we're thinking. So this is something that's familiar with meditation. I think I should let her out. Sorry.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're going to have a low-grade growl.
Yes, we welcome animal guests on these conversations also. And I think your dog is named Shanti, which is a beautiful
Shanti,
name.
yeah.
Beautiful name for a dog, but she's a dog, so
she's a dog.
She's got her opinions.
She's got her opinions. Yeah. So a couple of ways we work with thoughts is we notice that it's a thought. So if you've done any Vipassana or any kind of meditation where you're observing thoughts, then we're practiced at that. So we can watch the thoughts. And one way is to kind of bring your attention to the back of your head as though you're looking at thoughts as they're coming and going in your brain. And so maybe we could work with some words like, you're never going to write this book. Who do you think you are to write a book? So you can hear the words, or you can imagine that they're written out in your mind. And some people hear them more, some people can see them more. It's just the way our brains work. So say you can see them, and so you bring those words to mind, or you hear them, and then just take two fingers and tap on your forehead for a moment. And take your attention now away from the words and just into the sound of the tapping and the sensation of the tapping. And then bring your hand down and take a couple of deep breaths, just connecting in with your body. And then what's your experience with those words now? Do they sound the same? Do they look the same if you're looking at them?
For me, those words now feel farther away. So
Right.
they're more like they're encased in jello or something.
Right. Yeah. And that really reliably happens, is that we can see those are words and they get dim, or they get encased in something, or they get fuzzy or something like that. Another way that we can do it is we can put the words over on a wall on the other side of the room and see there's a frame. See if you can put them in the frame, and then notice that, okay, these are words that are in a frame, or this is a picture in a frame. And, we could look around the frame. We could look to see what else is on the wall. Um, all of these things that we do are meant to help us remember that we're looking at a picture, or we're hearing thoughts, we're hearing words. So that takes enough of the intensity out that then we can come back into our body. And say you're working with say you're working with a tight fist in your stomach, for instance. So but wherever the energy is, there's always some kind of an energy with thoughts like that. And oftentimes we don't know what's going on in our body because we're not paying attention to the body. We're just kind of, held in thrall to those thoughts that are in the mind. So when we use tapping or the other methods to kind of take some of the intensity out of those, we come into the body, and then we might notice that, okay, I have this tightness in my stomach, and it's kind of affecting my breath. I can't breathe as deeply. And some people would have like an image of like a black hole or a fist or a metal bar. There's all kinds of different images that come. But whether you have an image or not, notice that there's space around the outside of the energy. So most energies don't fill up our whole body. And even an energy that does fill up our whole body doesn't fill up the whole world. So at the most, it might feel like it's a little bit outside our skin, but it's not everywhere, right? So then we can notice, okay, so I have this feeling in my stomach. I don't feel it in my chest and my arms and legs, or I do. And then we notice the space around the outside of that. And then we really just kind of sit and listen. So if that energy could say something to us, if it could tell us why we're here, why it's here, what would it say? And so one of the questions is that energy here to hurt me? Like, does it feel malicious? And with the inner critic, it can feel like, yeah, of course it is. It's telling me all these horrible things. But why is it telling us those things? And I've never yet had anybody say, yes, it's here to hurt me. It's always, no, it's here to protect me. It's here to let me know that I need to do better. I need to get this perfect so that I can, be included. I can be published, whatever it might be. And so sometimes there's a sense of an age, like you'll have a memory pop up. Well, yeah, when I was 12, this happened, and, we'll have that memory, and then we can work with it again. We can tap on our forehead again. We can do those things. And over time, what happens is that we start to really know ourselves and know ourselves on a pretty detailed basis. Like, these are the kinds of things that really hurt when I was a child. I didn't really feel like anybody cared about me, or when I was upset, they told me to go to my room and get control of myself, or, whatever it might have been.
Mhm.
But now we all have this opportunity to attune to ourselves and to connect with ourselves. And that's what's different now. So we're not a child. Hopefully we don't have horrible people that we're living with that are critical. And if we do, hopefully we can get away. But we have a lot more agency and a lot more ability to work with this now than we ever had when we were a child. And so that's the that's a way that we start to lessen the intensity of that. And the inner critic is can take a little while to work with. And what we really need to do is kind of make it a friend. So we're like, okay, I hate the way you talk to me. I'm not going to listen to that all the time. But I get it that you're here to try and make things better. And even though this is primitive brain and you're not really smart enough to actually help. It's not actually helping, it's making it worse. But I don't have to turn against you. I could just kind of be present and talk to you and find out what's going on and kind of make friends with that energy. And once we can welcome it, then that's really the start of healing it.
That's amazing. So a writer's block, or that critic that comes up so strongly when we sit down to write or we take on a big project that we really want to do,
Mm,
can be an opportunity, albeit a possibly painful one,
right.
to go into the critical thoughts, monologues that's been going on in our brains for years and years and years that we have not yet been able to address. And through some simple exercises, start to put those experiences in a different context and have a different relationship with them, so that they're not in the driver's seat anymore. They might still be there, but they're not the only thing that's happening, like you were saying with the frame on the wall. If you're looking at that, what's in the frame and the frame itself, and then you're seeing what's around it, then suddenly you're seeing it in a much bigger context of it's not the only thing that's happening, it's one thing that's happening. So that in itself diminishes its power
Very-
instantly.
Yes. Yeah.
That's so
Hmm. Yeah.
helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that there's a romantic myth, although it's twisted, that to be a writer or a creative person and to have writer's block is just what happens, and you can't
Right.
do anything about it. Maybe muscle through it, sit down at your computer and tear your hair out and drink too much coffee or eat too many
Or
snacks,
wine or
or
whatever.
avoid it for another week, 4 weeks or something. That it's
Yeah.
just nobody has a solution, so you just got to grin and bear it. So I love this idea that it's really not true, and
Yeah.
that we might have to be patient and we might have to cultivate some new skills, um, to inquire about what's happening, but it definitely is something that we can, um, more or less transcend, sounds like.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we need to do is to become really solidly on our own side.
Yeah.
And that's what really, once we're on our own side and we're friendly towards ourselves and we're not haranguing and aggressive towards ourselves all the time, then what's really creative can come through. And then it's the excitement about what we're going to share that gets us at our desk working. It's not the, you got to get in there and you got to do this amount of words. And it's not like structure is a bad thing. I'm not saying that. But we also need to have that heart connection.
Yeah.
And as soon as we start to soften and go, oh, look what happened,
Mhm.
and can I feel some compassion for myself, just like I would for anybody else?
Yeah.
Then those things start to lighten up a lot.
That's a great point, that writing should not be torture. It actually is an opportunity to be very creative, even working within structure. The
Mhm.
structure is not a prison. The structure is meant to give you a container so that you can write your best sentences, get your best ideas down, and
Mhm.
write the best piece of writing, in this case a book, that you possibly can.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that is a joy. What a great undertaking.
It is. Yeah. And we're sharing something that's heartfelt and authentic.
Yeah.
And that's the other piece of this, is that if we don't feel safe within ourselves, and hopefully we have some trusted other people too that we feel safe with, then we don't feel safe enough to really be authentic. And then our words are kind of stilted, or
Yeah.
they're just not, they don't have that juice
Yeah.
that they do when we feeling in the flow and we're safe and we're connected
Yeah.
and we connect with other people, and that's when the best writing happens.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right. That is
Yeah.
very true. And
Hmm.
that's when it's exciting also.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Uh,
Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. I've learned so much, and I want to put these tricks of the trade into practice immediately. So I'm really happy you shared that practice with us. I hope that it's helpful for everyone who's listening.
I do
And
too. Yeah.
is there anything we could talk for a really long time, but is there any final um, well, actually, let me ask you this question. When you were working on your proposal,
Mhm.
was there any particular practice you found really helpful for the more challenging moments when you felt like, I'm not sure where to go next? I'm not sure which way to turn.
Um, yeah, it's always, there's a variety of things that I do, but they're always connecting. So sometimes I would just sit with that and feel the frustration of that in my body. This last month or so, I've been sitting more with the feeling the heaviness and the fear and, just the general uneasiness and uncomfortability around we don't know what's going to happen. And in the moment, what's happening is that I'm present with myself and I'm breathing and I'm fine. And so to touch into that is very reassuring. And then I can, once I have that kind of settled, then I can move into working on the proposal and to working on the book. So anything that you do that's connecting in kind of a real way. So often I'm out in the forest, I'm out walking, or I'll do a yoga or shavasana practice, or sometimes I'll just sit with my hand on my heart and just kind of
Mhm,
tune in and go, "Oh, this is it's kind
mhm,
of hard right now,"
mhm.
and
So the place to
breath.
start is by connecting with the present moment, what's happening right
Yes,
now. So to bring the mind that might be running in all directions, especially right now we're in the shelter in place. We've been here for a while.
yeah,
The mind can be very scattered, and like you said, could be heavy, or there could be fear. But to be present with that in this moment and say, okay, I feel heavy and I feel it in my body. I feel fear. I feel it in this place or that place. So to acknowledge it is the way to get present, and to get present is the way
right,
to open the doors towards more flow of ideas, and the
right,
door towards creativity and engaging in a way. So not running, not pushing away what's
right,
happening right now, but actually acknowledging it.
right. And just one more thing too about catastrophic thinking. That's really common right now because we're trying to project into the future. Okay, this 5 or 6 weeks was horrible, sheltering in place. Can I do that for a year? Like,
Yeah,
what's going to happen, right? And
right.
so we get into these worst case scenario kind of obsessions in our mind. And the media certainly doesn't help. There's all
Right.
kinds of scary things going on
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
So catastrophic thinking is really working in these ways with tapping and putting them in a frame. That's really effective with catastrophic thinking too.
Yeah.
So if that's something that's going on, you can really work with that as well.
That's such good advice.
Mm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's
Yeah,
fun to
it's
talk about this.
yeah, it's really great. It's so helpful. It's so practical
Yeah.
and widely applicable. I think a lot of people will benefit from this. So I
Mhm.
just want to say your information again for people who maybe came on later. You're Lynn Fraser. That's Lynn with two N's and Fraser with an S, LYNNFRASER. Lynn Fraser Stillpoint.com is where you can find Lynn. And the book that she's working on, that she has a proposal for, is called Ordinary Trauma, Extraordinary Healing, Inspiring Stories and Powerful Practices to Heal the Pain of Being Human. Thanks so
Mm.
much, Lynn. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.